Welcome to another edition of Betting People. Thanks very much for all of your kind comments on my interviews with Steve Palmer, Maddie Plale, and of course Racing Welfare's Dawn Goodfellow. I've got another guest who I'm very excited to bring in today. He is well known to, I'm pretty sure, nearly everybody watching here. It's Simon Rowlands, who is well known for his work at Sky Sports Racing and also in the past with Timeform and the Irish Field. How are you, Simon?
I'm okay, thank you, William. And you? Yeah.
I'm doing very well here indeed. Looking forward, one hopes with crossed fingers, to the resumption of racing soon in France, but I don't want to jinx that any more than I have to. So to jump right in, you've been in racing for a very long time. How initially did you actually get into the sport?
That's a polite way of saying I'm rather old, isn't it, William? Yeah. How did I get into the sport? I'm not from a racing background whatsoever. Nobody in my immediate family was keen on horse racing or went horse racing. But my dad did have once a year bets on the Grand National, and he used to back several horses in the race, and then materialised the ticket with the horse that sneaked into third or fourth place each way, and claimed to have had it off big time, but which I realise is a very early education in after timing, really. So I was intrigued by this. It was an intriguing, mysterious adult world. It was a very spectacular world, the Grand National and other racing with lots of colours and things going on. And I got increasingly interested in trying to figure out what it was all about. I was particularly interested in the numbers in the days when race cards used to be published in national newspapers and in evening papers. And I kind of figured out that the horses with lots of ones next to their name were better than the ones with zeros, but not always, and who the good jockeys were and everything. Watched those early Grand Nationals. Red Rum, when I was 10, won his first Grand National, and I wrote about it in my junior school diary the following day in a very, very precocious, early but rather incompetent attempt at racing journalism. One of the watershed moments, though, was the following year when my parents, not knowing what to buy me for my birthday, bought me a form book, a thing called Hague Racehorses, which was became Superform, and which was written by somebody who had been at Timeform. And it was a little potted annual with commentaries about the horses and ratings. And I figured out that the horses with the big ratings were better than the ones with the small ratings. And I had a light bulb moment. That kind of thing didn't happen in things like football. You had tables to tell you that Leeds United were better than Chelsea. It shows how long ago that was. Things like that. But horse racing had this way of saying that horse A was 10 better than horse B, and I was absolutely hooked. Pretty much from that point on, in my teen years, I quickly started reading things like Timeform, trying to run my own handicap, doing time figures and the like. And by the end of my teens, I was just desperate to get into horse racing analysis and journalism. And I think over the years, I've realised that the data aspect of things is really what grips me more than anything. But I still love the spectacle, love the odd day out of the race course, have had shares in horses, one of which actually won, and that was a lifetime ambition realised.
Wonderful. Guessing with your early and precocious handicapping, you had a fair bit of success when you started out with your betting. Can you remember what's your first big betting memory?
It certainly wasn't a big bet. I think it was 50p each way, but as a fifth form at school, when I should have been concentrating on my O-levels, another indication of how long ago this was, I backed Troy for the Derby and tipped him to anybody who was interested in listening, including my dad and his neighbour, who lumped on, probably had £1 each way or something like that. Troy won the Derby, one of the best derbies ever, actually, and one of the best Derby winners ever, in my view. And I managed to follow it up, and this really is after timing, with the winner of the Oaks at something like 20-1 a few days later as well. So I do wonder what might have happened if my first couple of bets hadn't been spectacularly successful. I think there's a degree of sort of survivorship bias with people in horse racing. You know, if you had one of those 15-runner losing sequences as your first 15 bets, you might have walked away. But I think I was far too hooked anyway, and just lulled me into the false sense that it might be actually something I could make money out of. But I've been trying ever since.
Wonderful. I think we've all got a bit of that survivorship bias, certainly. Speaking of getting into racing through that particular route, many of us, of course, have our traditional racing heroes growing up, be they jockeys or trainers. I'm interested in who yours were, because you grew up in an era of some really remarkable racing performances.
Yeah. On the race course, I think Steve Cawthon, as a jockey in particular, absolutely brilliant at his best. I think he was the best jockey I've ever seen. He was a magnificent judge of pace, brilliant rider. But he crossed over with the tail end of Lester Piggott as well. And so what a remarkable era that was. And we've had some good jockeys since, some very, very good jockeys, and do at present. But Piggott against Cawthon in the mid to late 80s was something else. So him perhaps most on course. Off course, though, was the founder of Timeform, which was Phil Bull, who was not only a great punter, a good mathematician, somebody who dealt with figures, and somebody who created a lasting legacy by establishing Timeform as a analytical way of looking at horse racing, and did an awful lot of good, I think, as a result. He was a man with trenchant views about racing politics and about life more widely, and I think that's to be admired. We can all become a little bit tunnel visioned in our approach to life when we're obsessed with horse racing, and he managed to keep his eye on quite a lot of other things as well. And so he was probably not only my main hero, but also, whether he knew it or not, perhaps my greatest influence. He and I crossed over at Timeform by a couple of years. I didn't see an awful lot of him, but I did have one or two memorable days at the races in his company, and also at his castle on the outskirts of Halifax. A remarkable man, I think.
Absolutely, and I think that is a very good note upon which to end part one of this edition of Betting People.